Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another watch list. Basically, think of this as a monthly TV guide for me to let you know what and when TV shows that I'm interested in, that maybe you're interested in, are coming out. Like always, in the description down below, I'll include links to any trailers that might be available to anything that I bring up during this watch list. On October 2nd on the CW, we have a new series called Family Law. Just for my brief understanding of the show, basically there's a woman who's kind of had some rough go at things. Apparently she's an alcoholic, and as based on the trailer, seems like she's kind of going through like a separation situation. Might even be a full-blown divorce, but it's kind of like a custody situation with her child, with her ex. And at the time that's all happening, her father, who runs like a law firm or something, he's kind of bringing her on board to work with her half siblings, even though she's not a lawyer herself. And it just seems like it's probably going to be kind of, speaking, I was just recently talking about In the Dark just now, that it's probably going to be something almost in that vein, probably like a legal drama comedy kind of type of show. But just from the trailer alone, the little bit I saw, I thought was interesting. This is a Canadian show. I believe it aired in Canada already. It's one of those shows kind of like Coroner. Interestingly enough, I would bring that up. That's kind of like now airing here in the US on the CW, but it already came out in Canada. But either way, just based on what we saw, seemed really interesting, and I'm excited to check it out. Also on October 2nd on CBS, we have Season 3 of The Equalizer, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, we're going to be picking up with Robin getting kidnapped at the end of Season 2 and what that kind of all pertains to. Obviously, I'm sure there's quite a few threads from Season 2 we'll probably be continuing to pull on. Obviously, I'm sure we're going to probably majorly lean into her main antagonist, the bad guy that from her past that resurfaced last season. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I'm sure he's going to be the main threat continuing going forward this season. And I think we'll probably deal with a lot more of Robin's ex as well, because he was kind of leaned in storytelling wise. They leaned into him a little bit more last season, so I think he's going to become more of an element in Season 3 as well. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. There probably is a trailer out by the time, but at the time you're recording this, but I haven't looked at it, and I kind of don't want to, considering the season starts next 6 days from now. So I'm probably not going to bother watching anything at this point in time, but that's just based on where Season 2 was. I'm assuming that's where Season 3 is going to take us with some of its elements, but either way, I'm very excited to see what happens. Also, on October 2nd on the CW, we have Season 4 of Coroner, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, this is coming up 4 months after it was originally supposed to air back in June. I think just because of the cancellation slates and stuff like that, I think a lot of stuff got moved around. But yeah, I'm excited to finally get this. Like I said, I brought this up back in June when it was originally supposed to come out. But either way, I'm excited to have Coroner. I am curious to see will this ultimately end up being the final season, because I think subsequently, obviously, once again, this, as I was bringing up earlier, this is a Canadian show that's already aired. Season 4 already came and aired well before it was even going to come out on the CW here in the US. Also on October 2nd on AMC, we have the final 8 episodes of The Walking Dead. This is something I've avoided all trailers. I have no idea what to fully expect going into this last half of the season. Well, I mean, obviously the Commonwealth being the main antagonist, unraveling everything related to that, I'm sure. But other than that, I haven't seen anything. I don't want to see anything. Once again, the season literally starts in 6 days, like everything else. I am curious I'm not sure if that's the AMC Plus date or is that the regular AMC date, or maybe it might be a combination of two. I think it's kind of irrelevant, but I'm just curious. Either way, I'm excited. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm so pumped to see how they wrap this up. Once again, we have some ideas. If you kept up with news, you have some ideas of who's going to make it and who's not, but there's still a wide berth of characters that you're I don't know where a lot of these characters are going to end up at the end of this show, and how things are ultimately going to wrap up. What the ending of this show looks like is definitely going to be interesting. In the grand scheme of it, especially because this universe is still continuing on, even though the show is ending. But it's going to be wild to see where these last 8 episodes take us. And finally, also on October 2nd, also on AMC, we have Interview with the Vampire, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, this is a TV show adaptation of, the book, which was also obviously, adapted into a movie. I've seen the movie, but I do not remember it well. I was also fairly young when I saw it, so I don't know how much that would have skewed my view on things anyway. So for me, watching this show is probably going to be like almost like watching it for the first time, because once again, it's been so long since I've seen the movie, and even then, and I've also never read the book. But also, like, once again, I don't even know if I've ever seen the entire movie. Like I said, I remember bits and pieces here and there, but like I said, it's going to be almost like watching it brand new. But either way, I'm very excited. Once again, I've always preferred a TV show format than movie anyway, so it's kind of all worked out for me anyway. So. On October 5th on the CW, we have Season 3 of Kung Fu, which I'm very excited about. I've avoided watching any trailers if there's actually any out. I think I've saw bits and pieces of the one, but I didn't want to see too much. Obviously, we get introduced to at least one new character this season. I caught a glimpse of it. I was like, oh, if you've watched some other stuff for the CW, it's an actor you've seen in something else. And I'm like, oh, him and Olivia Leong being in the same thing together. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But in the aftermath of last season, a lot of the Russell Tan stuff has been resolved, so what this next arc ends up taking us down, obviously with the way Season 2 ended, implying that it's the appearance of that person at the end being the alchemist, I can only assume. I doubt that's Paling. I'm sure that's probably the alchemist. Like, what her return here means in the grand scheme of things. I'm excited to see what's next for Nikki's journey, and obviously what this journey means for her family going forward, because there's still like stuff with Althea and Dennis that needs to be taken care of, and everything with Ryan and his new relationship with Sebastian. So kind of diving into a lot of that stuff this season is going to be interesting. Like I said, just the Shin family stuff in general. I'm excited to see where the season ends up taking it. Also on October 5th on Sci-Fi, we have a new series, Reginald the Vampire. This being this kind of like interesting supernatural like horror comedy series with is it Jacob Batalon? Obviously, like thing I'm best known for is Ned from the Spider-Man movies in the MCU, which I was like, oh, that's dope. He's kind of this dude that inadvertently becomes a vampire. I've only ever seen the teaser trailer for it, but just from what I saw, I was like, okay, this seems weird and kind of wacky, and it's like right up my alley. So that was enough to sell me. But I do know there is an official trailer that probably gives you more context of like what, you know, it's like, because obviously the flavor of it's just kind of like, right, the shenanigans ensue when you become a vampire and just trying to make your day-to-day life as a vampire and what that means. Because I think he's a high school student too, so either way, I'm just excited to see the show. It just seems really interesting, and so I'm excited to see what it ends up ultimately all being about. On October 6th on HBO Max, we have Season 3 of Pennyworth, which I'm very excited about. I talked about this in my trailer discussion. The origins of Batman's butler is such a weird thing, why they're deciding to tag this season as that being the subtitle for this season in particular. Whatever the case may be, I'm excited to see what happens this season. Obviously, we got this kind of almost cult using like some psychedelics, mind controlling stuff. Then we also have some other organization grabbing up and experimenting on people. Obviously, we're not getting the full context of what's happened in, like, once again, I believe it was a year time skip that happens nearing the end of Season 2's finale, and what's happened in between that year time skip and how much time has passed with this current season. So I'm very, very excited to have Pennyworth back, and very excited to see where this season ultimately ends up taking. Also on October 6th on the CW, we have Walker Season 3, obviously picking up in the aftermath of Season 2, Cordell getting kidnapped. I'm assuming this has something to do with the investigation that Miles was looking into, that he had kind of warned, like, right, you looking into this will kind of get you dragged into stuff. So I don't know if this is going to have any correlation to the Serrano stuff for Cordell. Probably not. It's probably just because of like the Miles stuff that they were investigating. But you know, that's all I'm keeping in mind of, like, you know, other than just some Walker family stuff in the aftermath of where everything ended up with the Davidsons. Like, how much of those threads are going to continue this season, like how many of the Davidsons are going to return is going to be really interesting. Once again, probably is a trailer out there, but I've avoided watching anything because I kind of don't want to know. But I'm excited to see where this season ends up taking us. Also on October 6th, also on the CW, we have Walker Independence. This being a prequel to the to Walker. This is taking place, probably like the 1800s, maybe. I don't know the exact time frame, but it kind of seems like it's a very Western style show, even more so than Walker itself. But it is going to be focusing on the Walker's kind of origin, just kind of like learning about that family's like first, like, I guess, journey in this country. And also I think we're gonna, because I remember watching the trailer and there's something related to the Davidsons and probably like leading to the bad blood, the history between the Davidsons and the Walkers, like really diving into that. It is almost like this revenge story because one of Walker's Cordell's ancestors, like, she was wronged. I want to say like maybe her husband or her family was murdered, and she's basically trying to get revenge and trying to find a way to make the people who took the person or people she cares about away, make them pay. So it seemed very interesting. It's been a little while since I saw the trailer, so I might be misremembering things, but either way, I'm interested to see what this prequel has in store for us. On October 7th on Netflix, we have a new series called The Midnight Club. I think this is the next Mike Flanagan show. Just from the trailer I recently watched, it seems like there's this facility that kids who are sick kind of go to I guess kind of get some kind of treatment, and initially they find some, like, I think it's almost like some spell books and it tells some like scary stories, but there start being ramifications, like supernatural stuff starts happening around them, and I think they're kind of getting hunted down, and it kind of, this band of people have to, you know, because they were all trying to use these books to like try and make themselves better, to heal themselves, but there are major consequences for it, and just find themselves in a crazy situation. Just, you know, I'm probably missing a little bit here and there, but just from what we saw from the trailer, it seemed really interesting, and to fully get the full context of everything, to really fully understand everything that's going on, I'm excited to check the show out when it comes out. Also on October 7th, maybe on October 9th, it might be one, because Showtime does that from time to time, we have the Let the Right One In series coming out, which I'm very, very excited about. This is a project where I've seen the original movie years and years ago. It's something I don't remember that well, very much like Interview with the Vampire, was like, I know it bits and pieces, but like I don't know how much of it I necessarily remember. But it seems like they're taking a very different approach with how they're approaching this series in conjunction, because it does seem like, based on what I'm understanding, this is all about like, hey, we're going to try and find a cure for you. The girl that's a vampire, like her dad or guardian, whoever that character is, I'm assuming it's her dad, but maybe it's just her guardian. I've made my videos where I've talked about my knowledge of at least the original movie. I've never read the book that it's based on, but based on that, like what that might mean in conjunction to the story that they're trying to tell in the Showtime series. But all I've watched is the teaser trailer, and that was enough to be like, okay, it seems like we are going to keep the same. I don't know if it's going to be as dark and as jacked up as the original movie is, and probably the book as well, but it seemed like they're probably leaning into some. I mean, it's on Showtime, so they can go a little further than they probably would have when it was originally potentially going to end up on. I want to say it was going to originally be on TNT. I think I discovered, but either way, I'm very, very excited to see this series and see, you know, the little I remember about the movie, just how it compares and contrasts. Also on October 7th on Disney Plus, we have the Werewolf by Night special presentation. Obviously, this being a Marvel Studios holiday special, I am so excited about this. Obviously, the trailer got me super pumped. It seemed like this is going to be one of those really experimental, weird like projects in the MCU. The fact is that, I mean, if the show keeps with the flavor and feel of the trailer, the black and white, the very like old school classic monster movie like aesthetic they've got going on, I'm very excited for this project. Knowing nothing about it, not well versed in the comics at all, not knowing anything about this project, I'm so excited to see what ends up happening. It just seems like it could be just a nice kind of creepy time in the MCU, which I'm excited about. Just to, you know, whether it connects to something to the larger picture, whether it eventually turns into that, whether it just ends up staying this small project, I don't care. It just seems really exciting, and that's all that really matters to me. On October 11th on the CW, we have the Winchesters, a supernatural prequel. This is where we get to meet a younger Mary and John when they first got together, and the whirlwind, you know, situation that was, and just getting to know their story fully. Because obviously over the course of Supernatural, Supernatural. We picked up some stuff here and there, but kind of learning more about those early days for them. John, who knew nothing about this world, and obviously Mary's connection to this world, them crossing paths and what that would eventually lead to. Obviously, you know, as a big fan of Supernatural, I'm very excited for this, to see, you know, what they, especially because we got a lot of what Sam and Dean knew were because of their father's journals. And so to know, like, right, to see those journals kind of be written in real time and see their experiences, their first run-ins with some of the supernatural stuff that they would eventually, you know, Sam and Dean would have to learn from their father, you know. There's a lot of stuff that's definitely going to be interesting, because obviously the original show delving into a little bit about, like, Mary and her parents, and once again, like, there's also, like, the men of letters type of stuff, so I'm wondering, like, how much of that will get covered in this show, too. But either way, I'm very, very excited. It does seem like, based on the trailer, how much the show is, it seems like the show is being told through the lens of Dean is reading some journals left by his dad, trying to uncover, like, understand, I guess, more about their family history even more. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting storytelling device. How much they really lean into that, we'll have to wait and see. Also on October 11th on the CW, we have Professionals, this being a show with Tom Welling and Brendan Fraser, which is pretty dope. The show was, like, filmed, like, a while back, and I think it's only just now coming to the CW. I don't know whether it aired internationally first and now it's coming to the CW. Either way, basically, Tom Welling is a part of a kind of a hired security group that's basically taking care of this, like, this very rich person, and it just seems like craziness ensues. They have to protect him because stuff that he's mixed up in. Once again, just based on the trailer, I don't really have a full understanding of all that's going on, but apparently there's kind of a coup situation going on and people want him dead, and it's up to Tom Welling's character and the rest of the crew to kind of protect this guy. And just, it seems kind of like this, like, action, wild adventure type of show. And once again, it's Tom Welling and Brendan Fraser. I was like, oh, that's dope enough on its own. So I've heard about this show for a little while. I'm finally kind of getting a peek at it recently, seeing a trailer for it. But I'm very, very excited to see what the full context of everything is, and just where the show ultimately ends up taking us. On October 21st on Prime Video, we had this new series called The Peripheral. God, I struggle to say that word. It's a new show that's actually, just recently learned, is actually based on a novel of the same name. But it's being made by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, husband and wife, who made the Westworld show. So I'm like, okay, from the creators of Westworld, they even say it in the thing of, like, oh, the mind-bending creators of Westworld. So I'm like, all right, you already sold me on that. I'm not, the only thing out at the time of me recording this is a teaser trailer, and that doesn't really give you full insight. There's a girl who ends up putting on this device, and it almost takes her in, like, almost like this, almost, I don't know if VR would be the right word, but it almost feels very Matrixy, and she's thinking, like, oh, this is all fun and games, until some guy was like, no, that's not all fun and games. It's what's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. So I was like, oh, so is it more so a device that's kind of teleporting your mind to the future to letting you know what's going to happen, or what's going to happen? I don't know. That's what it's implying. I have no idea. But just from what we saw, it seemed really interesting, pretty dope, and I'm very excited to check it out. Chloe Grace Moretz is in it. Is this the first TV show she's ever done? I don't know. I mean, once again, those lines between, you know, when it comes to streaming and stuff, those lines get blurred so much between, like, oh yeah, someone who just does movies, and, you know, that's a whole conversation. It's not an important conversation, but I just think it's just kind of interesting. And finally, on October 25th on Netflix, we have Guillermo del Toro. I'm sorry, I almost butchered it. Guillermo del Toro's, Cabinet of Curiosities. Once again, I'm not the biggest anthology person, but it seems like this is 8 stories being told. The only thing I watched was the teaser trailer, which I think gave you, like, the smallest hint of what some of those stories are going to be about, and maybe gave you some of the big names that are going to be in it. But it's Guillermo del Toro, and we know his style and his feel and his flavor, and kind of getting an anthology series built around that. I'm curious, are any of these stories just, like, stories he came up with, or are they stories that are based on some? I didn't read too deeply into it. I'll probably look into it more afterwards, but just from the tone and feel, I'm like, all right, you know, I want to try and, like, dip my toes back more into, like, the horror angle of things a little bit. But So I'm interested to check this out to kind of fully see what it's about. I know there's like a first look trailer out, but I was like, I'm not gonna even look at that. The teaser just kind of gives me enough of feeling vibe that I'm like, all right, that's enough of a tone setter that I'm like, oh, I'm curious to check it out. And so that brings this month's watch list to an end. Like always, if there's something that's coming out maybe I wasn't aware of that you're aware of that you think maybe me or someone else would be interested in, don't be afraid to leave it in the comments down below. Really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good